Move it.
Would someone move item 1.02? Mrs. Lyons, you're in a hurry.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and abstention? 600. Any- I apologize, I don't know how to shut that off without shutting off my phone. Would you now, I need to share evacuation procedure first. In the event of an emergency, either end of this room, there are emergency doors. Please go out one or the other and move out and away from the building. Would you now join us in the pledge short flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This evening, we have two persons signed up. So we'll start with Bill Cahill. I hope so.
The orange thing will be on, Mr. Cahill. There it is.
How about that?
There you go.
Good evening. My name is Bill Cahill. I live in Oswego. For the last 20 plus years, I've taught out here at Valley Elementary School, currently teaching 5th grade. Since 2015, 2016, I've been working to reinstate Carlton W. Barrett back into the fabric of the Fulton community. For those of you that don't know or might not know, Carlton Barrett earned the Medal of Honor on D-Day, June 6, 1944. And through, maybe for a number of reasons, he was never really recognized by the community as he should have, in my view. So I've been working through my students, through the classroom, out in the community to reinsert him back into the fabric of his hometown. I have submitted an application to have our junior high named after Carlton Barrett. I have since learned that this body adopted a resolution some years ago that prohibits the naming of buildings after individuals. And I honestly, Mr. Palvino was nice enough to share that resolution with me. I don't know what the reason behind it was. So it could be considered an obstacle to my vision. I don't know that it's the same type of obstacle that Carlton Barrett faced at Omaha Beach. Him and 77,000 other American young men in 25 miles of beach had 4 million mines put in the sand courtesy of the Germans that they had to navigate that morning. And they're responsible for killing most of our young men that day. So in comparison to that, is a board resolution that big of an obstacle? I don't know. If that resolution is going to hold up and this body won't consider that morning to earn that medal, I have learned that you can obtain a replica of the medal, though I believe the actual medal is going to come to Fulton next year for Memorial Day. And I do have a verbal, from the county council, I've got a verbal agreement that they're going to. And the teacher could be standing there with a student who, you know, maybe he or she's not as tall as they might like to be, and look at that citation and say, you know, that guy, he was only 5'3" tall, and he did all those things on that day. And you could have a student that maybe is, you know, not being nice to others on social media and say, well, you know what? That guy's job wasn't to save people's lives that day, but he made a choice. He chose kindness and compassion. He didn't ignore his job, but he saved a number of lives that day. Maybe you could have somebody that's, maybe a kid that's a little too full of himself and say, you know what? That guy did all those things. You're the Medal of Honor. He never retold his story to anybody, not ever. Never returned to Fulton to have a parade and maybe have a statue named after him. So to me, when I think of Carlton Barrett, I think of him as a teaching tool for our kids. And yeah, his actions took place many years ago. But but the character traits that he displayed on that day are the character traits that we want all of our students to possess in the 21st century. Carlton Barrett would be 102 if he was alive today. I spent 2.5 hours this morning with a man named Keith Baker, who's 99 years old, and he grew up with Carlton Barrett. He lived on Buffalo Street, Carlton lived on Rochester Street, and they knew each other a little bit as kids. But in talking to this living individual, Mr. Baker, I was very much reminded of the character traits that Carlton Barrett displayed on that day. The perseverance, the dedication to a cause bigger than yourself, humility, again.
Sorry, Mr. Cahill, to interrupt.
We're friends, I thought you'd give me more time than that. You have the application, you have information that I attached to it. I thank you for taking the time to read it and make that consideration.
Thank you.
Thank
Am
you
I
very
able
much.
to ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is there a significance with the junior high? Or is that just the only school?
The junior high doesn't have a name, that's the
Well,
full
it
junior
does,
high.
but name.
It's like G. Ray Bodley. It's not named after an individual.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that.
So, and Mr. Palvino knows how to get a hold of me. If anybody has questions, please reach out to me and I'm happy to answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and next on the list is Ron Levine. And Mr. Levine, before you start, I need to share with you that,
Yes.
I'm just looking at the topic, so I'm not, but we do not discuss students or employees. This is not what this forum is for.
Yeah, no, I won't say his
Okay.
name personally. Is that what you mean?
We don't talk about persons,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I wasn't gonna.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I knew that, thank you.
Okay,
I
just wanted to
appreciate
make,
it.
before we
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah,
started, okay.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
yeah, I appreciate that.
All
All
right.
right, those who don't know me, my name is Ron Levine. I moved here about a year and 4 months ago, I retired. I put in for the head position of coach wrestling. I feel I was the best guy. I believe I'm the best guy. I didn't want to come up here and compare stuff like that. My question would be, can we table this and I'll email you people why I feel I'm the best candidate for this job? You know what I'm saying? Without saying all this stuff in public.
well, it wouldn't happen here because we don't do that, so no,
Oh.
yeah, there's no discussion.
There's no discussion on that?
No,
Okay.
No.
All right. I was under the impression it was a table something and then,
Well, I'm not saying that things can't be tabled. What I'm saying is we don't discuss employees or students.
no.
Right,
I'm saying, what I'm asking, all right, you have to vote on it, correct?
right?
Okay. I was asking, can we table that where that position isn't voted on tonight and submit to you, the board member, through email, so it's private, why I feel I'm the better candidate? You understand what I mean?
Well, I mean, you could have talked to us before tonight.
See, I wasn't sure, I didn't want to make it, I didn't have people come and talk for me.
So this has been, I mean, this has been, well, actually, it's been public knowledge for a while because somebody told me long before it even got to me.
Yeah.
So, you know, but I don't see that happening, but yet I can't speak for everyone at the table here this evening, so we'll have to see what happens.
Okay, I didn't want to make a circus out of it. I didn't want people coming here and speaking for me.
Mhm.
I actually didn't want people, I want to come here, speak to you people, and go that direction without, you know what
I
I'm
mean, you
saying?
do understand the process. I guess I could.
No, I did not. I thought I
Okay.
had to come here and ask to have a table.
No, the process is there are people charged with responsibility for hiring employees, so we have a human resource department,
Yep,
as well as we have the athletic director.
yep,
It's my understanding the athletic director utilized the committee approach for interviews. Interviews took place. A decision was made by the AD, which is then passed on to the superintendent, and the superintendent either yea or nay. And the only time we vote on anything, it has to come to us through the superintendent.
mhm,
It's the superintendent's choice
yes.
who gets on this agenda. And that's,
So, all right, here, then, answer this question, nice and simple.
Mhm.
Once it's on the agenda, there's
Mhm.
nothing you can do.
Well, I wouldn't say there's nothing, but I can't sit here and say there's something. I mean, if we had,
All right, then I'm
what you're
confused.
asking is,
There's
can
nothing
the
or
board,
something.
well, the board could theoretically, the majority could vote
Yeah.
no, theoretically.
Okay,
But that doesn't typically happen.
Oh, no, I
Because
understand that.
before things get on the agenda, the superintendent makes certain that the board gets all their questions answered. He provides backup for his rationale and the rationale of the employees that work for him, of how they got to their decision.
Yeah,
And we then ask our questions, and then it's finally on the public agenda.
okay. So, are you telling me then, it's simple, I'm a big boy. I've been knocked down before, I get back up.
Mhm.
So, basically, I have no course.
Typically, when it gets this far, it doesn't
Okay, you know,
change.
not typically, it's yes or no, I'm easy.
I can't give you a yes or no, because you want me to speak for 7 people, or 6
Oh, I
people.
understand.
And I'm
So-
only one vote. But
Yeah,
typically, that's why I'm saying typically. Typically, this is how it goes.
okay.
But I can only speak for myself, I can't, and I will not speak for my
No, 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 I
colleagues.
understand, I don't want you, I'm just trying to understand
Right.
how the process I went about it. I
Right.
thought I had to come and have something tabled.
No, your conversation,
Mrs. Griffin, we're at freedom.
okay,
Got it.
all right. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Perry. Moving on to item 1.06. Approve the agenda from June 14th.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed and abstentions? Passed 600. Are there any questions with regards to the upcoming meetings and information of the president's report?
Just a question about the law conference.
Yeah,
Is that just with Fulton, or is it a?
it's open to
Open to
probably
all.
This
all,
is their-
probably to
all
all
their
of their
clients.
districts they
their
represent.
clients? Okay, thank you.
And when do we need to let Mrs. Perry know about it?
As soon as possible, so she can make the registration. I would say
Okay.
no longer, or no later than probably the 15th, I think. is what it says.
The 15th?
But I would get it in so we get our seats and registered. Does look like there's a couple topics on it that look pretty good.
Yes.
Yes.
Very interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And Mrs. Griffin, you wanted to talk about the convention
Um,
rooms?
Yes. So the convention is in Syracuse this year, and I don't know who's planning on attending, but I was thinking that if we could all commit to one full night, typically Friday night that's really busy, to stay in Syracuse, and as far as it's tiring. I've done the commute, and I did it, the first time I was in Syracuse, I commuted every day. It was exhausting, because by the time you get home at night, you're barely hitting the pillow and you're back up again and you gotta go. Because we have some breakfast meetings and things like that occur.
It runs Thursday through Saturday.
Right, so I'm just saying, if people have the notion, I'm asking for at least one night, and that way we get some time, we can talk about what we heard that day, and look at who's attending what maybe the next day. And Saturday, are they voting in person this year, or is that going to be virtual? I don't know the answer to that either. So depending on what they do, you may want to go see Democracy in Action if they hold a vote in person, but I'm not really sure how they're going to do that.
I think they broke it out last year, which was nice, so that if you wanted to be the delegate, you wouldn't miss the learning portion.
Right, it was this whole set, it was an entirely different day,
Yeah,
which was nice, yeah. So there is that. So if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call or Brian. But I just want you to know up front, the commute, it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're going to all the events, or if you pick a late evening one and then you had a breakfast one, it's a lot.
Gina, I'm gonna be going, but the city is gonna pick up mine, so.
Okay,
Gene, when do we anticipate, normally they open up that window for the rooms early August,
Early August.
mid-July?
right, so if we could let Jean know by mid to end of July, it would be helpful.
Do you
And
know
how
when
many days?
the fall sports schedules will be released?
I know they're already laid out for the most part, so I could get those to check those if we need to.
Because I'm definitely interested, I just want to make sure that I'm not missing.
Yeah, I know that they've been formed.
Okay.
I believe pretty much 100% what we need to have.
Okay,
Sounds good, thank
Yep.
you.
all right, I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent Levine. Oh, wait a minute, no, I'm not. I have one other thing very important to do. How did I almost forget? So this evening, I have the pleasure of taking a time out, and I would like to present to Lynn Lyons a certificate of appreciation in recognition of her contribution to the Fulton City School District Board of Education from 2016 to 2022. And Mrs. Lyons, thank you very much. We appreciate your service. We're going to take a 10-minute break because we have a treat. We have some cupcakes.
Oh.
So please join, we'll get some cupcakes, and we will be back in 10 minutes.
Just go.
All right, we're back, and Mrs. Lyons, thank you, and because of you, we got a nice treat also, so appreciate that. The last item is the need to move our reorg meeting from July 5th to this Friday, which is July 1st. And we're looking at 1 o'clock. That seems to be good with the majority of my colleagues.
And the location will be the same.
And the location will be here at the high school. And this is due to people being away
For the holiday.
for the holiday. So this is the best we can do to meet our requirements under the law, is to meet Friday at 1 o'clock.
Which is first weekend of July.
So the first week in July. Are there any questions or any other comments from my colleagues? All righty. Now I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent Colino.
Great,
And I
thank
thank you all for your help.
you. Once again, Ms. Lyons, thank you for your service to our students. We've been on board and also many years of service in many different capacities, so thank you.
It's been an honor.
The first item I want to just provide an update is our extended school year and summer programs. Ms. Geithner, just jump in at any time, but what I really wanted to point out was our extended school year for students with disabilities starts July the 5th. That's our kids that get the work through their individual educational plans, about 40, 45 kids. And then our summer programs for K through 12 begin on July 11th. I don't know what I think our enrollments were sounding pretty good. Can you comment on that?
Yes, so at this time, we have 144 students registered for our K through 4 program, 72 students registered for the 5 through 8, and our summer institute for our 9 through 12 students is about 45 students at the moment, and that's the short interest-based, like cooking and other exploratory sessions for the summer. And then the high school counseling office is also in the process of registering students for the academic recovery program as well.
And prep for exams.
Correct.
Any questions? So we're excited about that. Wait that a little bit. We'll move on next to the capital improvement. Just I want to provide some updates from our last meeting. All of the fences are removed down at the complex. They had some equipment issues, so they're supposed to be starting the turf tomorrow or Friday or Thursday at the latest. So hopefully we'll start to see that equipment down there. My question when I asked, are we going to be ready to roll when the turf arrives? The answer is yes, which is slated to be here early August. So we're still on target with that. But I just wanted, if you're receiving any questions, like I thought they were starting right after graduation, that would be the case. And the HVAC, we're seeing some supply chain issues around some shipping, which with the HVAC units, one that'll be on the roof of this was just moved to September 2nd. So we'll have a plan in place of when that gets in. Hopefully that's the last time they're going to move that one. And then right now, I believe we're looking at the latter part of July, if it ships on time, for the small gym. So there's a lot of work going on. You may have seen some sidewalks going in at Lanigan. They should be laying the sidewalk and extension over at the junior high, kind of shoring up some pieces over there for us, and then some work here at G-Ray Bodley. So a lot of work is getting started, but I did want to share with the public and with the board. That's why the field hasn't gotten rolling further than that, but we're still on schedule. Next up, Code of Conduct Annual Review. Mrs. Geithner, if you'd like to lead the discussion, please.
Yes, I just wanted to share the work that the Code of Conduct Review Committee did. Over the last couple of months, they have met 3 times, and the committee was comprised of our faculty and staff, administrators, students, parents, student support professionals, and teachers and aides. We had a couple of community partners also join us at the table. Liz Tiffany, our Director of Student Support Services, facilitated that work. And so you have a memo at your places just outlining the general recommendations for next year's Code of Conduct. The focus areas that they made some adjustments to were updating the language in the Dignity for All Students Act section to be consistent with current regulations, and also to provide more specific information about obligations and methods for reporting instances of bullying or harassment. They took some time to focus on what is listed in our code as prohibited student conduct, and really wanted to make the connection between the social emotional learning competencies and benchmarks and the expected behaviors, and also to be sure that the language that we're using is consistent and aligned with our positive behavior interventions and supports, and also placing the emphasis on discipline as a mode of teaching and getting away from language that's purely punitive or exclusionary to a more restorative and comprehensive teaching and learning focus in the code. They have recommended the addition of restorative consequences as part of the continuum of consequences for behavior infractions. And again, that emphasis on developing skills and competencies consistent with the social emotional learning benchmarks. There were a couple of typographical errors that were noted by the committee that we will correct in the process, as well as the removal of binary pronouns, him and her, for example, and changing that to their, to be more inclusive. The committee has posed that they continue to meet during the upcoming school year. They would like to spend more time really analyzing the different elements of the code and identifying how we can construct our code of conduct in a way that reflects our multi-tiered systems of support and interventions. And then they would really like to get permission and financial support to have our code printed with more graphics, more photos, more diagrams that will be additional ways to communicate that information to a variety of audiences and be sure that it is more accessible to all of our community members as they're navigating the code.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I wanted to thank you for the work and the backup. One of the things that I know Robin probably would agree with is that the board usually is always wondering about the dissemination of the policy and how is it communicated to the stakeholder groups. And I wonder about that, especially in the climate and, as an educator as well. I find that, as a result of the pandemic, our students and our parents, are reorienting themselves to the work that we do and the expectations on them. So I'm just wondering has there been conversation? That's a lot of work and I appreciate it, but how will parents know that it's, we view it as a partnership and that, they have a role in that. And it's hard for them to hear that after the fact when you're the disciplinarian delivering the consequence or the outcome of a situation. So I guess I'm just wondering how we're going to be proactive with that. And you may not have an answer, but I'm just wondering about that. And one of the things I wondered about was, it seems like student doing some kind of produced video exchange, even involving students and and stakeholders in that process to educate, making them available on the website might be helpful, so that they're able to kind of access that and we know it's there for them and we can point them in that direction. But I just wonder about that because it was really kind of, I don't think it's a mindset that everybody's going to approach after the fact the same way as they would maybe receiving information in advance.
Yes, thank you. That video is a good suggestion. I'll pass that on to the committee, but they did talk about one of the reasons they focused on the presentation is because we posted as a policy format, and there is a plain language summary that is also developmentally appropriate that we have shared. So it does get mailed as part of our calendar. It does get posted on each school website as well as the district website. And it is reviewed by our principals with both the staff and the students throughout the school year. But part of the conversation of that committee was exactly that. How do we turn this into a partnership that's more interactive with parents and with students? So they are looking for creative suggestions for dissemination.
And I know we do the best we can to check the boxes for communication, and I totally get that.
Yeah.
I just know that, and I appreciated the mailing in August that included everything in addition to the yearbook.
Mm-hmm.
you know, the purchase, you know, amount and the, you know, and how to reserve your yearbook. I think our district does a great job with that, but I don't know that every parent reads through all of that information that they get in that one mailing, and it's so crucial. I value it, but I don't know that everybody else does equally, so.
I know that everyone doesn't, I can say that. People near and dear to me.
Good.
No, we don't. And I have to say, me
Yeah.
too.
Further discussion around code of conduct.
Do the schools, the high school and junior high in particular, they used to do a presentation on some of the items like dress code as part of the code of conduct. Do they still do that for the students to help them get acclimated at the beginning of the school year?
So that's typically done as part of our reteaching and kickoff at the beginning of the
Yes.
school year,
Yeah.
and then periodically revisited as needed. So we do still implement our direct teaching of those expectations in our schools at the beginning of the year. And it looks different at each developmental level. We use vehicles like guided study hall here at the high school and homeroom at the junior high level, but also the school culture teams have planned those teaching days at the beginning of the school year. So revisiting some of the, based on the data that we have collected this year, revisiting some of those critical topics. to go
One of the
back to that.
complaints I've heard, and it came from students, was, and I don't, it's their perception, so I'm not saying it's true, I'm telling you their perception, is that the dress code isn't always applied consistently. And I've been questioned on that, why I can wear this on one day and I'm good, and then I find myself in front of somebody because someone says it's inappropriate. So that would be the one thing, based on that feedback, if there's, again, it's their perception, so if that helps, something to look at to see why they have that perception, and if it's true, can we figure out how we can improve in that area? Thank you.
Further discussion, thoughts?
I have a really stupid question.
They're not stupid.
Maybe I should not ask this on.
They're not stupid.
I'm trying to find it, but we have in here, gender means actual or perceived sex and includes a person's gender identity or expression. What's expression?
How you would outwardly portray your gender. So it could be by dress, hairstyle, how you choose to be referred to.
Okay.
I have a quick question too. Did, my mind, I was like taking notes and stuff. Is the cell phone policy part of what you guys discussed?
So cell phone use is actually a separate part of a separate policy, but it was part of a conversation because it is a behavior infraction. There are cell phone infractions and technology violations included in the text of the code of conduct. That is one of the areas that the committee thinks needs some further exploration and some additional input.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just, again, this is perception of kids coming home and talking, but, if you're not allowed to have a cell phone, I guess I'm just confused in why they're saying that they can have them out in study halls, and they're just using them in study halls instead of reading a book. I know my child can use reading a book and not use their cell phone, and I get it, toward the end of the year, maybe the last couple of days, fine, but throughout the whole, I don't know if it is a problem. Maybe it's worth having it discussed before the fall and have something very consistent and in place.
So cell phones are not prohibited by our policy. Cell phones are to be used at the discretion of the supervising adult.
Right.
And in the context of instruction, the teacher may say, get out your cell phone and complete this poll, or whatever the case may be. So there is not an outright prohibition, but they can't interfere with learning.
is that just for the high school or is that for the junior
That's our
high too?
district policy.
So they can carry their cell phones around with them?
Well, it's at the discretion of the adult, so
Right.
an
Yes.
adult may say, we don't need your cell phone for instruction, so it needs to be off and not present, so.
Okay. So they can carry them.
Further discussion and questions? Okay. The parent involvement policy, Title I, Mrs. Geiger. On the spot tonight.
So this is our annual review and update of our Title I parent involvement policy, and is presented here for you as a first time to review the current updates. There were not significant changes made to this compared to last year's version. We did add some more specific language to include parents and caregivers to be inclusive of different family configurations. We also aligned some things specifically to areas of focus based on our data. So for example, a lot of the work in our strategic coherence plan and conversations around the family engagement portion this past year have been around how do we communicate in a variety of ways to families who whose primary language is not English, for example, is one target population that we might miss. Families who are temporarily housed or unhoused is another group of people that communication can be challenging. So those adjustments were made to reflect specific efforts that we would want to focus on to be inclusive of all of our students and their families in these activities. But they are very much aligned with our strategic coherence plan. They will be aligned with our DSIP and the work that we will do around family and community engagement. So our Family Engagement Advisory Council will be re-energized. We do have 2 staff members who have applied for coordinator of that group, and we'll do a lot of work specifically to make sure that we are reaching out to a broader audience of families and getting additional perspectives and developing plans around family and community engagement going forward.
Discussion or questions? So this will continually, every year it needs to go on and be reviewed. I wanted to make sure at the reorg that it was, I also wanted to make sure you had some preliminary information, some overview. And then what we'll do is, like we do with any policy, policies are living. If there are adjustments, we will bring it back to policy committee and bring it back through that way as well. But I wanted to make sure that we were compliant in this area. That's why you also heard about code this evening, because that's part of the reorg meeting. So I wanted to have an update for you this evening. Generally, this is the meeting. They just happen to be really close together this time. And so there wasn't as much time to digest. So I'm glad we had some rich conversation this evening. Next item. This evening is the May financial report. Dr. Lisi and your team.
Sure, thank you. Just our period ending May 31st, 2022 financial summary. Just to give you an overview, we'll start with revenues. Just wanted to highlight first our local revenues, representing our taxes and our pilots. Again, in line with last year's budget, of course, our annual budget for this year. And our state, representing our state aid, our year-to-date figure is approximately 84% of what we anticipated, and again, in line with last year. Our federal aid programs such as Medicaid, a little bit different there, likely because we hadn't received all of our funding just yet. And that represents about 22% of our anticipated revenue in that area. And then we'll move to our expenditures. And I just wanted to highlight our supplies here because it is somewhat different than last year. And it's mostly due to the fact that last year we were using a lot of supplies that we had accumulated during remote learning. And so this year, which we're back in sessions, a lot more supplies and so on. So that's what that actually represents. Aside from that, we are in line with our budget and also in line with last year's year-to-date figures.
Have we spent all of our CARES Act money for gear and ESSER?
We've budgeted, but we haven't spent it.
Okay, because I know that has to be spent.
Right. Correct.
I believe we're in good shape with CARES, because it's the CRRSA is what we're working on now. So our CARES, we were a district that used almost all of it in
Right
20,
away.
in 20, from, it would be March to June of 20. We really allocated in there for most of our CARES, so that was kind of taken care of. And then CRRSA is what we're working on now, coupled with ARP.
Yep, yeah, because there's two that are due 9/30/22.
Oh,
so
we're already on it.
We're setting that.
I figured, but.
Yep, great question. Well, we will provide an update to the board on our CARES and ESSER. I mean, we haven't come back around to that and show the actual expenditures. We showed all the areas, we've done all those
Yeah.
things, but I think that would be good to come back around to sooner than later. So we'll get that on either later this summer, probably August would be a good time for us to hit that, because the books will start to
Yep.
close and whatnot. So-
I just had some questions about the organization so that I'm interpreting it and the public is interpreting correctly.
Yep.
The two columns to the far right are what the voters approved in terms of budget. When we say actual budget for last year, that would have been a year ago, is that right?
The prior year to date, is that?
Yeah, the prior year's
Right,
budget.
Right,
And so everything to the left is kind of where we were at the end of May.
Correct, that's right.
And then I just had a question about, I think it was contractual and other, because that seemed to exceed what we had budgeted. So can you speak to that at all?
Exceeded our budget?
Well, the column to the far left that showed where we were at the end of May is 18,100, or 18 million rather, 103.
That's the budgeted amount,
Right.
and the one
So,
next to it, the 13 is what.
What I had asked was, the approved budget amount was 17 million to the, in the two columns to the far right.
That's this
That's
year.
this year, not last year.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So you got 2021 on the left,
So when it
21.
says year-to-date to me, that suggests that it's where we're at currently in relation to what we had.
I understand.
What?
So I can explain for you. So
Yeah,
the prior year, I understand the confusion. The very first column would be last year's budgeted figure. Okay, and then the prior year to date is the actual at end of May, where we are. So the budgeted figure is 18,103 in excess. And as of May, we were at approximately 13.8 last year. This year's budgeted figure was 17 million. And where we are as of May 31st is 15.5. So it's literally comparing where we were at this time last year with this
Okay.
time this year.
Yeah, I guess that the lack of the year is what
Sure.
is confusing. Those that are close to finances might see that more clearly. I have it reversed in my head. Thank you.
I know one of the things that Dr. Lisi in the budget office, I think you're going to see a much more user-friendly approach. This is using the Forecast Fives model, because that's what we
Yeah.
started using about a year and a half ago. But the new model he's been sharing is going to be much more user-friendly, I think, and public-friendly for the board, with a little bit more clear information. So I
If
think
it's school year specific, it
Yeah.
might be helpful just to put those years in
Yeah.
the depth and where they belong.
I think what the most important thing to focus on is where the year-to-date percentages were last year versus this year, to make sure we're still,
But there were federal funds that we got after the fact. That's what I was thinking in my head, that maybe the budget was passed before we got the additional federal funding, and I didn't know where that came into play here, so.
right, but the percentage, it would still be relative, do you know what I mean?
But if the voters approved a dollar amount, it would
I
still be
see,
that
gotcha.
dollar amount. It wouldn't change because Congress passed something and gave us more money. Because the voters approved spending for,
But would there have been a budget amendment for that?
no,
Well,
this is
we
general
don't do
fund.
They don't get
This
the
is
line
general
by
fund
line.
only. This has
I'm
nothing.
just looking, I'm trying to make sense of this and
Right.
in my head, and I'm
Right.
closer to it than other people, and if I'm confused, then they might be.
Right, and that's fair. I'm just saying, the voters don't necessarily, I mean, Brian talks about line by line to some degree, but that's not what they vote on the,
I know, I'm just trying to, if it's gonna be meaningful to me,
right.
you know what I mean, for me,
Yes.
as one person, as a
Right.
board member, I'm just wondering.
You want the
I want
public to
to
be able to
understand.
understand
No,
that.
I agree, and that's good, but
I think that we were seeing the same thing. I think that's why we're gonna, when we go into the new fiscal year, we'll have a new reporting mechanism. I think, and we'll get your feedback, see if you like that one.
Well, I appreciate it, the efforts are helpful, I just
Yep.
wanna make sense of it, so I'm keeping up.
Yep, absolutely. Great questions, Dave. Any other questions about the financial report? And finally, I just wanted, for our final pieces for the nomination for recognition of Carlton Barrett, you heard Mr. Cahill, one of our teachers, earlier this evening, spoke to this. We received the request, and the way our policy is written, which is policy 7500, permanent recognition of performance and contribution, requires that I have the support of the board to move forward to create the ad hoc committee to consider recognition, which is the way we wrote our policy. So I just wanted to bring that forward. We shared the documentation that was forwarded by Mr. Cahill. And I wanted to just follow up to make sure that you wanted us to move forward in creating the ad hoc committee. It's very clear who the participants are, no less than one district administrator, one school principal, 2 teachers, 2 student representatives, and 2 community members. In the past, the last time we had this committee, when we had the forum, we also had 2 board members as well. So discussion, is there a way?
I'm good with that. I just would like to take a moment though, and, thinking back, and thank you, Lynn, for reminding me, the reason, recognition versus name change, there's a lot that goes into a name change. It's very expensive because you would have to change all of your paperwork. Any paper we bought, so you've got to wait and either, use that all up, and then people are, well, you changed the name, but now it's still saying, Fulton Junior High. And then you've got to come up with the cost, which isn't on us. It's in this recommendation that the board accepted, that the cost is on the people that want the change to come up with the actual plaque. So I guess that I don't know about changing the name on the building.
So,
And then on the,
How do you pick and
May-
choose
may-
that?
right, you can't.
maybe I
do
can
that.
comment, because the
Right.
policy reads as follows, and this
Right.
is what Mr. Cahill was pointing out today.
Right.
In the second paragraph, we actually, as a board, permanent public recognition is limited to one of the following forms: board resolution or proclamation, a memento awarded to the individual or group, or a plaque affixed to or displayed in a district facility as determined by the Board of Education. The board shall, by majority vote, approve any of the above forms of recognition to be presented in the board's name or to be displayed or placed on or in or affixed to a district property.
Right, I was just trying to speak to, there was, listening to Mr. Cahill, he doesn't understand, he wasn't part of the rationale. So what goes into a name change, it's not as simple as just changing a name. There's a lot of costs associated with changing the name of a facility. And I think that was part of a little bit of the conversation.
It was, yes.
Yeah. And is there anything else you want to add to that conversation? Just for clarity, because not everyone maybe was paying attention when this occurred.
Well, I think we decided that because of the fact there's been so many different people involved in the junior high, how do you pick and choose if they're gonna change a name? So we made a decision to leave it as such and to have a plaque in their honor in the hallway as they go in.
And I also recall that there was some discussion about, we have people that do not know who Mr. Lanigan was. We have people that do not know who Mr., Fairgrave,
Ray Bodley?
Mr. Bogley, and so more important to me was the notion about teaching our students about Corporal Barrett. I think that is, to me, was the most striking suggestion, is that our students should know who this Medal of Honor winner was and what he did. And I can get behind that. I know it's important. It's about who we are as a nation, and not every community has someone that achieves an honor of that significance. So I don't know if that requires a discussion, because that's something altogether different than a name change. But that was also something that Mr. Cahill shared was his desire, was to have that part of our curriculum.
Right, he also mentioned this evening, because when he and I were doing a bit of an email exchange earlier today, that's where he referenced the plaque or something up, and
Yes.
something says, with really acknowledging and having different pieces there displayed, I think is the word he used, and a plaque. So he understood that also that as a plan B, that may be one of those.
Well, yes,
Options.
we did with Mr. Simpson. We had a presentation
That's
at the
correct.
school, and we could do something like that, and you guys can. It would be wonderful.
But I think it's great that the community is honoring
Yes.
this individual.
Yes.
And I don't know.
I was
mean,
at
it
the
sounds-
common
it
council
doesn't
meeting
sound
when
like
he went
He's a
and
member of
got
the
it.
community, more significant to the community perhaps than the school district. And I think that would differentiate him from the conversation around.
Which is why a previous
Simpson.
council named Corporal Barrett Drive there by the lake.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it's.
He did a presentation at the common council meeting that I went to, and it was a nice presentation, more involved than what he did tonight. And he talked to the city about doing some certain things for him too, so I think it's great.
Yep.
I do too, and, you know, maybe it gets worked in that it's taught in line with either Veterans Day.
Great idea.
And I say Veterans Day because he is a survivor. He did get the medal and he survived World War II, as opposed to Memorial Day.
And it brings it to light for kids that this is a human being that
Yes.
came from our city.
Mhm.
I'm not sure, I'm not from Fulton, I'm unsure when, the schools got their names, who they were named after, why. And I think that we should all know. I think it's a great idea to honor this man. He was saying that June 6th, we're going to celebrate that date in his honor. And our students should know about that. And maybe a good place to start would be a plaque inside of the school and move on from there. I mean, there's stadiums named after teachers, but why and how does that come into place? That, we can take time to discuss that, but to honor and to start teaching the kids, I think that's a perfect way to start, as well as teaching our kids the alma mater, which they don't know. So maybe if we can all bring everything like that back in, and that's school culture, that's strategic coherence plan, like this is all gonna meld perfectly together. So I think it's a great idea, and it's giving us a great place to start, at least, and then we can continue on with the discussion. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow.
No, it's not going to. I'm just saying, just to clarify, I agree, there was more to this than just a name change. There was that curriculum request, and I don't want that lost. I think that, for me, that's more important, that the children know who he was and why he's important, why he holds significance in this community. And it's those kinds of things that we honor those people that demonstrate such courage and represent our nation with courage. And he was great humility. I mean, you know, he didn't brag about it from what I understand.
And I think there's also a need to focus on local history, and I think to what Lynn alluded to, you know, we don't want to appear as though we're picking and choosing.
Right.
And I think that's the slippery slope that we get.
And you're right, David, because we've watched other communities have, communities split apart over naming. And that also came up in that conversation, is we didn't want to create something that could cause a divisiveness within the community. So the names are there, and it would be like if someone were to say, well, let's choose Granby. Let's say, for an example, well, I know that would upset people because I was around when they had the discussion that Granby should be named Granby because the residents of Granby wanted to be recognized in the school district because Volney was recognized. Now, the junior high is the only building that has the name Fulton on it.
And it's in Granby.
It's in Granby, but it's,
Yeah, I mean, just take it slow and make it purposeful.
yes.
Right.
And I believe that
Ask
that's where
students
we've been,
involved.
and I was
Right.
just, I wanted to make sure we were clear that it's not that this group isn't listening.
I'll be on the committee.
There you go.
Yeah, well, it would be consistent.
I could do the committee again.
It would be consistent.
And we have students on the committee, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Yes. I'll be a parent. On the committee.
Why don't you just name it after me?
Can we have a hyphenated name, please? All right.
All right, now we're all getting silly. All
No,
right.
I'm just kidding, in all
I'm
seriousness.
not.
No, I know you are. Okay.
And then I wanted to just thank everybody for a really good year. I mean, a year that we did not anticipate. I think it ended up a very different start than we all anticipated last summer. I think our staff, faculty, administrators, everybody who works for this organization really rose up to the occasion this year. And I just wanted to be able to, to say that here at the end of the year. The graduation, we'll be getting rave reviews, a lot of positive feedback. We are estimating we had over 1,800 people there that evening. I did go to a neighboring district because I was curious about how that might look, and they did a ticketed event with two tickets. I ended up standing with a dad in another parking lot a little bit away, and it was a very interesting discussion. And he had heard about folk and made the comment, gee, the whole family got to go. So I think we did a good thing. We're already planning for next year to try to figure out how do you cover a new field. A whole lot different when you're dealing with a field that was going to be changing. So we're already looking at that. We've already been debriefing and having discussions and looking at different ways that we could do some of those same things. So at a relatively decent cost to be able to do some things. So but the feedback that we got was really great. I hope the kids had a good time. It looked like you had a great graduation. The families looked very happy, and Mother Nature also
Fantastic pictures.
gave us a little win that night. Pictures, the graduation. I took the opportunity to watch the video, which was great fun. But I think we did a really nice job. And I want to thank our students for doing a great job that evening as well. And congratulations to the class of 2022. Thank you for Reagan for your service here on the board. And then Molly, we're looking forward to next year. We're already in next year, 3 days away. Alrighty? So with that, I turn it over to you, Rob. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on, item 4.01, financials.
Move it. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, and abstentions. Passed, 600. Item 4.03, budget transfers.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Passed, 600.
Mrs. Griffin, did we do 4.02?
Did not.
I did not, I'm sorry, thank you for catching that. Item 4.02, approved disposal of surplus property.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention. Passed, 600. Item 5.02, district safety plan.
Did we do one?
We're at 5.01.
Oh, 5.01, Jesus. Thank you. 5.01, approved committee on special education.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions. 600. Item 5.02,
Move it.
Second.
discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Item 5.03,
Move it.
Second.
discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Passed, 600. Would you like to batch item 6.1 through item 6.24?
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion on any of these items? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention. Passed, 600.
Abstain. Abstain.
Oops. 501. Item, would you like to batch item 6? Now, wait a minute, I gotta do a single. 6.25.
Let me catch up. Are we batching or going single?
No, I'm doing 6.25 right
Okay.
now, just by itself.
Okay. Move it.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
Abstain.
Passed 501. Items 6.26 through item 6.33, would you like to batch those?
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and abstentions. Pass 600.
634.
Item 6.34,
Move it.
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions.
Abstain.
Pass 501. Item 6.35,
Move it.
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions. Pass 600. Item 6.36.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Pass 600. Board forum. Mrs. Lyons, you can kick us off.
Well, this is my farewell. Thank you to all of you. It's been a good ride. I'm honored. Brian, I'm leaving this to